It's great to be here, and Wells Fargo is very proud to be here. And most importantly, I want to thank all of you. The work that you're all about is important, and one of the concepts I want to mention toward the end of my comments is the importance of collaboration and teamwork. And so this is a great opportunity for us to actually be with you to talk on that subject. So with that, I only have a few minutes, and I have 5 themes I'd at least like to get into the room, and so you'll only get a couple of thoughts on each theme, but I think they may be helpful for us as we do go forward. So first of all, theme 1. A phrase I've been increasingly using over the past few years is, we clearly now live in a stakeholder world. It's no longer just a shareholder world. Let me give you some thoughts on what that means to me. In the work I do, I personally spend a lot of my time listening to groups that you represent and other groups in this country, because for us to actually make change and to work on the cultural shift that Andrea mentioned, it's important that we hear from many, many groups. And so we've increased our activities around listening to stakeholders because we believe that through that listening, we'll be able to make changes that will create practical solutions that will be sustainable over a long period of time. A couple of personal examples for me. I meet with groups regularly. Those meetings are not always fun. I'm going to underline they're not always fun. But I will tell you that they're really important. I remember one in particular from this past March when I met with the group called National People's Action, along with the Citizens for Community Improvement. And frankly, they had a list of items that they thought we could do better. And I have to tell you that it did have a personal impact on me. There were 2 or 3 that it changed my perspective. I went back into our organization with a different zeal for a couple of items than when I went into that meeting. I'm not the only person who meets regularly with various stakeholders. Another example, however, I want to talk about because of the mortgage crisis is Mike Hyde. Mike leads our mortgage operation. Mike spends lots of his time in stakeholder relationships. Just in the past few weeks, Mike's worked with the Consumer Federation of America, the Center for Responsible Lending, and the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights. Again, the information that Mike hears firsthand from the field makes a true difference. Now, one of the things I can say is we're not going to agree on everything, but we do learn from these very frank discussions. It does help us develop new policies. It has impacted pricing and product decisions that we've made. So I believe that these exchanges actually lead to long-term partnerships where we can share resources, we can share expertise, we can share distribution networks, and create solutions that are helping our communities succeed. Let me make just a couple, let me move on to theme 2, and again try to use some examples of what I think is going on, not just at Wells Fargo, but in our industry as a whole. So let's talk about housing for just a minute. So theme 2, helping people stay in their homes and protect that investment. This is a really important step. And we have taken many steps over the last 3.5 years to try and help our customers stay in their home. So I can give you a couple statistics, but I promise I'll get off them quickly. We have forgiven $5.5 billion of principal in the last 3.5 years to help people stay in their homes. We're pleased to say that 93% of our current customers are current on their mortgages. Unfortunately, that means 7% aren't, but 93% are. And last year, we were proud that only 2% of the customers' mortgages that we have actually ended in foreclosure. But let me tell you the key to that story. Those statistics are only possible because, going back to what I said before, it's about stakeholder relationships. We could not have produced those metrics by ourselves. Let me give you a couple of examples. If I go back to the beginning of the crisis in 2009, interestingly, that was about the time I came into my current job. Interesting timing, huh? We heard from many stakeholders that large financial institutions like ourselves had to find a more personal way to engage with the consumer. So up until that time, it was all 1-800, call in, and it was all over the phone. For those of you who have been through the mortgage process, you know there's a lot of exchange of information. And there were complaints that information was lost. Different people would answer the phone call next time. And stakeholders really pressed us on the fact you have to find a more personal way. Out of that came something we call Leading the Way Home. An important headline in Leading the Way Home is what we call home preservation workshops. These are where we take our technology and our people, the same people and the same technology that were on the phones, and we move them into communities. It's made a huge difference. But let me tell you part of the story. The first events, not many people came. Perplexed, we couldn't figure it out. Guess what? It's a pretty easy answer. Relationships with banks aren't always great. People are embarrassed, they're afraid, they're upset, they're angry, they don't want to see us. And so we had to find a way, even though we thought we had a solution, we had to find a way to get people to have the trust to come and see us. Luckily, we reached out to partners like you and said, could you help us get people to come and see us? And when we began to partner with other nonprofits to encourage people who were struggling to come and see us, they began to come. The next learning was, guess what? The results of an in-face interaction versus a phone conversation were dramatically different. Today, after all the events we've done, nearly 50% of the people who come to physically see us at one of those events, within weeks, we find a solution for their problem. That's a remarkable finding, but think about what happened. It was because the trust of people like you, who they trusted more than us, could help create the connection. Another story, and it's one of my favorite stories, actually relates to my trusteeship with the National Urban League. Mark Morial, the CEO of the Urban League, has become a good friend. One day I was talking to Mark, and we were talking about home preservation events, keeping people in their homes. I'll never forget it. I was in Mark's office. He looked at me and he said, you know what, Jon? I actually think these home preservation events are working pretty well. And then he said, but when are you going to pivot and begin to think about access for homeowner-ready consumers? I'll never forget. When are you going to pivot? Well, we're not the fastest people in the world, but a year later, after hearing that same theme from other stakeholders, last November we announced a program called Neighborhood Lift. Neighborhood Lift is a program we take to the hardest hit cities in the country with 3 goals: financial education, down payment assistance grants from us, and helping move REO inventory within neighborhoods. Not our REO, let me be clear, none of it's ours, it's all somebody else's. So if B of A is out there, thank us, we're helping you get rid of some of your stuff. But seriously, the point is, again, it was stakeholders giving us counsel that helped us see an idea. Let me go on to the next theme. We just saw the FDIC study within the last few days. Obviously, I'm sure you've read it. I've read it a couple of times. I'm still trying to get my arms around the 4 recommendations, but I'm working on it. But we know that bringing Americans into mainstream banking seems to be an important outcome. Clearly, we own a big responsibility in that space. And we have lots of ways to do it. I recently also, I guess it was last week, Andrea, you sent out the paper on the importance of integrating asset building and financial empowerment strategies into housing and homelessness work. So just kind of the transition from the topic I just had, how do we leverage something else we're doing? And frankly, we believe this theme that bringing Americans into the mainstream banking system is really important. So we have tried to offer a wide range of accounts so the customer can build savings to protect against that emergency that will throw them into homelessness. Believe me, we get it. We know how many consumers in this country are one paycheck or two paychecks away from losing their home. We work with them every day, so we know this. So we know firsthand the importance of helping consumers find those ways to save. And so I won't go into our products because I don't think that's the point of this. This is not about telling you the great things we do, but I think it's the theme that it's all about how do we collectively help people get into mainstream. Now, one of the things I do want to compliment you on, the IDA work that you help lead is an important step in this transition to mainstream banking. We've tried to participate. I think we're in about 30-some cities today, probably 40 different programs. Keep at it, and we'll try and keep up with you because we do think that is an important product in addition to the products that we provide ourselves in this theme of helping people into the mainstream. Let me go on to the fourth theme, and this is about outreach and financial education for underserved communities. You heard Director Cordray talk about it. Clearly, we believe that the lack of financial education is one of the biggest problems in underserved communities. I'm sure you know this, but it always is good to remind myself. Over a third of Americans don't pay their bills on time. And 90% of high school graduates actually graduate without knowing the basics of banking. Those are pretty startling statistics. And if we want to get ourselves grounded, I just go back to statistics like that, and it helps me really focus on the challenge that we face. So at Wells Fargo, like lots of our peers, we work hard at trying to provide free financial education to help, again, partner with you to actually help people figure out how to have the convenience of mainstream products and how to avoid high fees and how to properly manage their relationship. So we partner with groups all across the country with our program. We have a program called Hands-On Banking. It's our free financial education program. Last year, our team members educated 100,000 people. So we aren't going to solve this problem by ourselves at Wells Fargo, I'm first to say, but if we all get together and we get 10,000 here and 20,000 here and 100,000 there, before long we're actually starting to make a difference. I love to tell stories. Let me tell you one. 3.5 years ago, I met Reverend Jesse Jackson for the first time. He wanted a piece of me. He wanted a piece of the industry. So I agreed to meet he and the Southeast Conference of Rainbow Push at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. We spent the afternoon talking about the mortgage business. You can guess how much fun that was, right? You think it was, think about the timing, summer of 2009. Wasn't a whole lot of fun. Here's the interesting story. Out of that difficult afternoon, we have been able to partner with Rainbow Push and brought our hands-on banking program together with Rainbow Push and have created a partnership where we have already trained, the goal is to train 1,500 churches, and we've already reached 20,000 parishioners through that partnership with Rainbow Push. So what started out as a very difficult situation has ended up in a really important partnership that's making a difference for lots of people across this country. That's the kind of win-win that's possible when we focus on what's possible as opposed to focusing on what we can't agree on. This raises the point that, from my perspective, figuring out how to do scalable activities that are sustainable over the long run is critical. As I already said, our 100,000 is a dent. But if we take all of us and find ways to leverage our networks, our expertise, your expertise, all of a sudden we begin to make a difference. So we're trying to think about ways that we can work on scalable activities. Rainbow Push was an example. Another example, it's a pilot. We're going to see how it works. Back in May, we announced a $5 million grant to the United Way of America. Guess what? My trustee relay, if you want a trustee, you ought to get me, as you can tell, works pretty well. But seriously, we're, for the first time, working through the United Way of America in a program where we have picked 8 cities in a competitive process where we believe they have interesting programs around how to create financial capability within their communities. Our goal is to watch those 8 programs very carefully in partnership with United Way of America, and guess what? We hope that emerging out of those 8 pilots will be a best practice that then we could, Wells Fargo and the United Way of America, could then take scalable across a number of cities as opposed to 8. So that's another example of a program where we're trying to leverage. So let me come to the final theme, which I don't think will surprise you based upon where my comments have been. We really need to work together to find solutions. No one of us is big enough or strong enough or has enough influence to solve the challenges we face. So we really need to do it together. So I want to thank you for letting me be here today. I want to thank you for the work that you ever do. And here are a few things I hope you'll take away from my comments. I want you to know that we're really trying to listen. I know that always doesn't seem to be the case, but I hope some of the examples I've given you will help you believe that not only Wells Fargo, but our industry is really trying to listen. 2, we really do want to have constructive dialogues with lots of people. We don't want to be in our own cave by ourselves. We want to be out there talking to people. 3, we're getting better at admitting mistakes and getting much faster at fixing mistakes when they occur. That's the only way this is going to work. You got to start with saying, yep, we screwed up, and then you got to fix it really quickly. And 3rd, you got to figure out a way to not let it happen one more time. Clearly, we're not perfect. We've learned that the hard way over the past few years. But we're always trying to find ways to improve. And through the relationships with you, we're able to do that. So frankly, we're committed to working with our communities, our customers, and stakeholders to earn your trust to help people in this country succeed financially. But most importantly, I think we want to keep working with you to try and find these sustainable, scalable solutions to help our communities succeed. We at Wells Fargo talk about our mission is always to help our customers achieve financial success. Well, I always say we're here to help our customers and our communities achieve financial success. And I believe that working with you, we'll be able to accomplish it. So thank you again, and I look forward to our informal discussion.